Welcome to Book Club for Movies, everybody, for the week of June 15th. I'm Ryan Miller and Matt Amberg. Wait.
Whoa!
Dang it.
I am loving this change in my life that I was unaware of, but I am jacked about.
I am only Ryan Miller, and he is only Matt Amberg.
Oh.
Sorry about that. Sorry about the confusion.
And now only? Like, I'm not good enough?
Well, I used only to describe myself as well, so yes, but also in the fact that you're not multiple people. Neither of us are.
How can you make such grand assumptions and statements?
If you were John Cusack, I might take a minute, but you're not.
I'm Juan Cusack, actually.
Oh, so you are two people? On Book Club for Movies, where we watch one movie a week and we tell you what it is so you can watch it too. And then you can contact us at podcast@bookclub4movies.com or on Facebook and or Twitter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, phone call.
This week we're doing...
Text messages.
We are. It's true.
Smoke signals?
No. That's an okay movie, though. I'm glad that Native Americans are getting out there 10 to 30 years ago.
I was like, it was that in the movie Thunderheart with Val Kilmer.
Oh, boy. I think that shared an actor, though. It's very possible.
Graham Greene?
If I had known his name, it would have really said something.
To be fair, there are a few Native American actors. Yeah.
To be fair, there are few Native Americans.
Also that. Welcome to COVID, the genocide edition of Book Club for Movies.
No, this really does go with what we're doing this week, because as I was going to say, we're doing The Decline of Western Civilization Part 3 this week, and I can't believe I can say this, not in the way that you might think currently. So, before we get too deep into that, Matt, do you have a synopsis? Can you synopsize?
Sure, we'll do it. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll give it a go. It's going to be called The Decline of Western Civilization Part 3. It's going to come at you in an hour and 26 minutes. Directed by Penelope Spheris. It might be Penelope. It looks like Penelope to me. Has been for a long time.
Grand assumptions.
No grand assumptions. Starring Final Conflict, Naked Aggression, and Rick Wilder. Here's your synopsis from Book Club for Movies for The Decline of Western Civilization Part 3. A documentary diving into the lives of late 90s gutter punks.
Okay.
And that's it. Yeah.
That is it, and probably shouldn't be much more.
I debated even doing that much.
So, where to start? We're doing a documentary again. Have we done a second documentary show?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so.
Hero Dreams of Sushi was the one we did.
Yeah.
And fantastic. Check it out.
Terrific. Love it.
And honestly, I don't know that we're going to discuss this. Okay, I don't know that I'm going to discuss this movie in many of the same ways that we discussed Hero, even though it is another documentary. And I will also say this. You probably have to tell me to shut up at some point, at multiple points.
Okay,
so
I am going to lead this discussion
okay,
today.
all right, yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Okay.
Give me your background. Give me your attachment to this scene, this music, this film.
You know, we're gonna get there, but I'm gonna. Do you have anything you've got to get out before we get to that?
I've got the whole show I got to get out.
Okay, good. This is perfect then, because I have. I got this. This is great.
Okay.
This will be weird because I don't usually lead anything.
Great.
I lead, follower, get out of the way, and I am definitely a get out of the way kind of guy.
It's great so far.
Okay. So Decline of the Western Civilization is it's a series of documentaries that Penelope Spheris has been making since 1980, I think is when the first one came out. Yes?
81.
And then the part 2 came out in 91?
88.
Okay. And then we jump up to 1999 with this one, right?
98.
90. Okay. Well, hey,
I don't really want to correct you by 1 year all the time.
No.
This
is good. Okay. No, this is perfect. So 98 in terms of that year, I was 18 when the movie came out, or 17 when the movie came out. My birthday is in December. I had seen the first one. I've not seen the second one. Still have not. I can tell you that from where I'm going to come from with this movie is that I knew a lot of people that would have fit this bill, that fit into that gutter punk lifestyle, that even if they had a place to live, they didn't really have a place to, it was truly more a room than a home.
You were in California until you were
at this point, until I was about 12-ish. 13.
Okay, all right.
So I was in Washington at the time.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I can tell you that with the music that's played here, like all the music I'm good with, it's fine. I recognized 2 bands' names,
Ooh.
but I did not know anything about them, and I don't know that I recognize their names as punk bands or if I just know them from something else.
You have me beat by one band. What are the 2 bands?
Final Conflict and Naked Aggression.
Okay.
And Naked Aggression is a band that I don't know if I knew that was a band, but when she was on stage...
Or a concept?
Or no, that I knew about. It's like every day at home I wake up and it's just...
Son, are you practicing your naked aggression?
Put your undies on.
Right.
But I recognized the name and that there was she was a female singer. Like I recognized that, and that's why I put that together. And I think that's how I knew them. But Final Conflict was the only band that I had heard of. Like I knew I had heard that band.
Okay, so I had only heard of Naked Aggression, and I'm sure I heard their music. I might even have them on a mixtape at some point from one of the older kids I used to hang out with, but had no idea about any others. So you got me beat by one band, although it sounds like maybe I knew more about Naked Aggression.
You definitely did. You 100% did. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And again, so a lot of this is super interesting to me because so many of the stories that get told, I mean, it's the thread is there. If you ever knew anybody that kind of lived that life or was in that subsect of punkers, I guess.
Sure.
You kind of saw how all of this was going to thread together. And sure enough, it does. When you get to who they are, every one of them has the same story or something really wickedly similar.
Yeah.
So super interesting because I knew a number of people like that.
Okay. And stop me anytime, but you were out, not necessarily on your own at a fairly young age, but you left home. I left
home at 14.
Okay. Not out on the streets, so to speak, but
I bounced around from like I basically couch surfed until I was 16.
Oh, okay.
When I was able to make money, and then I paid a little bit of rent here and there to people, but it was a lot of couch surfing. Okay.
I was never out on my own as much as that. And you possibly weren't necessarily out on your own as much as these guys, kids.
Not at all. Not at all. I had places that I could legitimately, while I'm saying that they were places to couch surf, I had places that I could legitimately call my home. Like I was never.
I mean, they use the term couch surfing in this film as well.
Right.
So
I would never. I was never on the streets. I was never homeless. I was never wanting for food or shelter or anything. I certainly had, there was certainly a lack of certain things in my life, but overall, like I didn't have nowhere near any of them. Yeah.
Okay. Before we get too much into any of that, though, I will go through a little bit of the history because it is so fascinating to me at the very least, and fascinating to me because I grew up much like skateboarding. I grew up kind of in the trickle down versions of these subcultures. I grew up as a young punk in California, but nowhere near in the same way that these kids did.
Right.
I grew up as a skateboarder, but nowhere near in the same way that the guys in San Francisco and LA even were. Yeah, no, me and Tony Hawk, like parallel careers.
Basically the same person. You became a film editor. He just became a mogul.
Yes.
Either way, I think you both had an opportunity.
No, yeah, it's
This is like 13 going on 30, or wait, no, vice versa. It's the movie Vice Versa. You guys could switch, it'd be no problem. Sorry,
but for that reason, it's super interesting, right? I love finding out about this stuff after the fact. In fact, this has kind of been a hole that I've dove down for 3-4 years now, because all this stuff is coming up on YouTube. There's tiny documentaries that aren't necessarily getting the release. In fact, I didn't know this movie didn't get released technically until 2015. There was no VHS or DVD of it because the only people that wanted it from her, she identified it as kind of a downer of a film, also wanted all of the rights to the past films as well, and she refused to give them up.
Smart.
So, yeah, eventually she was able to do her own release of the 3, and to which she still owns them. But yeah, so 2015, this has only been out and legally available, I guess. But her career is crazy. I don't know how much you dove into it.
Not at all. It hit me.
One of the grand surprises of this thing, she started out with stuff like this, like on IMDb, the first decline is only her 3rd credit. And the other two, I don't know how wide of a release they saw, but they're shorts at best, nothing feature length. So she does the first decline of Western civilization. And then after that, she does a narrative film called Suburbia, which I completely forgot about until I read that. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So she did that. And that's also the film I was conflating with the first decline in terms of the rape scene that we mentioned. That appears in that film.
Sure.
So it's been long enough that I don't remember anything about the first decline movie, but I apparently remember even less about and have combined it with several other things. So
It sounds like something I would do.
At some point I'll rewatch it and we'll see how it goes. The first decline, Suburbia, I might give a pass for reasons that I've mentioned now. But she did that film and then she kind of kept going. Like we mentioned, Decline Part 2 is 88.
Holy crap. I'm
you
just
found it,
looking
didn't
at her
you? Yeah.
IMDb right now, and what the what?
She sticks with it for a while. We got a Night Ranger video. We got Megadeth, Bonfire, another Megadeth, something called Thunder and Mud, another feature-length documentary that I know nothing about.
Not know this?
Yep.
All of this is just my head is exploding right now.
Dang, okay, you got to it. But sure enough, okay. Then 1992 happened. And
no joke.
she is offered Wayne's World. Had no idea
I don't,
up until this point. And you up until mere minutes ago. Seconds
Yup.
even. And
it just keeps going.
well, for a few years, yeah. So this is her quote, right? When somebody offers you $2.5 million to direct a film, you just effing take it. I took the money and I made a bunch of movies. The Little Rascals she went on to do, Beverly Hillbillies she went on to do, and Black Sheep in 96 she went on to do. She says after she did Wayne's World in 92, she tried like hell still to direct movies she had written and books that she wanted to adapt for film. This is her speaking, quote, I tried so hard to do something beside television remakes, but I couldn't get anything going. That is where the sexism in the film industry becomes all too apparent. If I was a guy, I swear I would have been able to get my own stuff going after Wayne's World. Can't disagree.
Oh yeah,
honestly.
I'm certain that she's not wrong.
But actually the funny thing is too, she mentions after everything was said and done, she made about 150 grand on Wayne's World and was able to break even pretty much, like pay off her debts after that, which seems crazy. Like I know she was basically not so well known to direct even Wayne's World, but the fact that she made 150 grand,
it's crazy when you find out stuff like that, right?
Nuts, yeah. Anyway, so she broke even. She kept going with some of those things that she could get going, but sure enough, after Black Sheep, 98 comes Part 3, the movie we're doing today. So it's fair to say that she never really, like her heart never really left where it began, right? So in fact, she must have been working on this while she was working on Black Sheep to some extent. In any event, that's where we're at. And we did mention the first film, and I did mention in the past show that first film, despite me not remembering a whole bunch about it, was like a Bible to a young punk growing up in California at the time. And,
sure.
I'm sure it'll come flooding back to me whenever I finally
the minute you turn it on, you'll go, I remember everything.
I do remember it looking a ton like this one.
Right, yeah. She has similar setups to my memory, too.
You could have shown me Part 3, and if you hadn't told me, I would have said that maybe it was Part 1.
I think she's using the same cameras, too.
Could be, yeah. I don't know. In fact, I know film was used, but I think she had a video camera at some point. Some of the stuff done in the house looks like she was carrying a video camera.
She might have been carrying like a camcorder, yeah.
Okay, yeah, something like that. In any event, and was going to mention this later, but it looks great still. Like, it doesn't look bad, and given her chops up until this point, it's an obvious choice. Like, none of this was, I'm sure, like, oh, it's all I had, all I could do at the time.
Right.
She's making a ton of obvious choices throughout this film. Some that I'm into, some that we'll talk about.
Yeah, I can't wait.
So that's where I'm coming from. And honestly, I don't want to really even paint myself with the same brush as any of these kids, and not in a bad way. Like, I was a punk like hippies were beatniks. Like, I was rebelling against a pretty fine suburban life, honestly, and even if my musical tastes were a bit more far-ranging than a lot of my friends, like I could never get into Blink when that started happening, but still my first band was Pennywise. I still love Face to Face, bands that I'm sure the kids in this film would hate. Like,
maybe
You're right. I don't know, but I can't imagine. I'm trying not to give myself more street cred than I should at this point. Like
the bands that are shown here that they're listening to are definitely less pop punky and more of the straightforward political punk. Like all of them. Like
absolutely. Not that I didn't listen to a lot of that, but still, like I'm saying, like I wouldn't be surprised, and I haven't looked up the history of any of these bands. I wouldn't be surprised if they never made it anywhere past LA. You know, like to me, these have the feel of those local bands that get really big locally,
sure,
and then just kind of fizzle out because they either don't care or whatever the reason. You know, like
it's extremely punk. Yeah, whatever.
The Resistance is probably the epitome of that too. Like Naked Aggression is great, and I think the interview with them was fantastic.
Yeah,
but the Resistance are squatting. They are out on the streets. Some of them are homeless. You know,
right.
So.
The fact that the only things they really have are the instruments that they have.
Yeah, they have a bit on that too. Like band comes first. Like band is everything, you know. So I just don't want to give myself.
Nobody's gonna think you were a homeless kid in the 90s.
Okay, nobody's gonna think that I was as hardcore as these kids. You're right.
I don't think
what
so.
I'm worrying about.
I think especially when you're like, I don't know if I want to watch the other movies she made because of the one rape scene. Like. I'm not saying you should be like, if you're punk, you're into rape scenes, but I am saying that I just don't think.
Fair enough.
It's, you know.
And I guess we can get into the thing now, like more specifically.
Sure.
And I think the bands is a great place to start because there's only maybe 4 that they super do focus on, and it is.
To me, go ahead, sorry.
That they have actually music and they play stuff from the shows. I think the 2 are Naked Aggression and The Resistance are the main 2, but also there's basically only 2 more, Final Conflict and Litmus Green, that they kind of focus on for a little bit longer than others. Yeah. I don't remember any true or extended interviews with the actual band members.
Yeah, there's nothing for Litmus Green.
No, they use their music as kind of a narration of sorts. You know, like they oftentimes subtitle the music and the lyrics so that you can make the connection there.
And the so all of this too. When it comes to the bands in particular, it's all just one show. They've got like one show of where these bands were. And I'm guessing that's where she plucked all of the people. I mean, because you see them in like during the show, you see everyone that she interviews pops up in that show somewhere.
I wouldn't be surprised if she herself set up that show. Well, she does go in a little bit with the venue owner, so she had some help. But
I'd be interested to know if this was more of a she set it up, or was this just a standard show and she. I mean, because she does go out and she clearly got in touch with them ahead of time, because the very introduction to the movie is each of the band members reading the waiver that all of the people essentially had to quote unquote sign.
That's right. Yeah. So it's got to be the same show. In fact,
no, it's definitely, it's definitely the same show, because when they talk to the venue owner, the venue in the back has the list of bands and it's all of the bands.
I was just going to mention that. And did you notice the one band on there, which would have been a second band I had heard of and maybe the biggest that never shows up in the film?
It was, Yes, but I don't remember who it was.
It was not Yes, although they're great. Probably wouldn't have fit in great in this film. U.S. Bombs.
U.S. Bombs, yeah.
Maybe that's another little piece of evidence there that the bands were very consciously chosen and well chosen. Like she chose the right bands for the piece. Obviously.
Well, I mean the other option, when you mention that, makes me think that she chose the venue and it was one of those 3 out of the 5 bands said okay, let's go with it.
Yeah. I mean, I could see. Oh, is it Dwayne Peters, right? U.S. Bombs? Pretty sure.
Oh,
I think it was an ex-pro skateboarder too. Yeah, I could see him saying, no, thanks.
Pass.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that though, actually, because the interviews are endlessly fascinating, but also I think what would you call that? Okay, nobody would call it this, but the artifice of documentary is a little bit more on display than others. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of it that isn't hidden that I think would be hidden in other documentaries. Like we get a lot of her voice.
Yes.
We get a lot of her asking questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I actually like that. That doesn't really, that actually, in certain cases, I think that actually serves the film well. And I think in this case it does, because to a degree, like she doesn't lead answers, she definitely pushes questions and is looking for answer. Like she's looking for kind of a specific answer, but she doesn't lead to the answer. I think she does a pretty good job of getting the questions out there right. And I think when you do hear her voice, it's those moments where if you didn't, you would think she teased that specific answer.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I hadn't considered that as much.
And I don't know if that's her like doing it. Like that's how I kind of felt about it. I don't know if that was conscious on her part.
Well, okay, so I don't do a lot of work similar to any of the movies that we watch. One of them that I do, especially when it comes to documentaries, I've done a lot of interviews. So this I can key in on a little bit.
Okay.
I'm aware of the necessity to make people comfortable, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm positive that she had to do that a little bit to get these kids talking. In fact, she did a fantastic job because these kids go into anything and everything. And I'm sure they don't have a lot of filters on them, so maybe it wasn't that hard, but there is a degree of sincerity that I think is commendable. Obviously, that she was able to elicit or this is the thing. Her voice is in it, and it's a little too buddy almost.
Sure.
Which is fine. Actually, make friends with the kids, like obviously. But there were moments where it felt a little too much or a little distracting from the answers even. And I know part of it also was structural. Like some of those interviews are quick on the street things, and if she's going to cut out every single one of her questions, it's going to hurt In fact, she didn't edit this. There is another editor on it. Ross Albert and Anne Truelove, who I do not know personally or by their work, but
thank you for defining both of those.
Yeah, I can get why they would not cut out every question, obviously, because it would just be too annoying and it would take away from the structure. It'd take away more than it would add. So again, you're gonna have to tell me to shut up. At some point.
Man. That's a fair assessment. You're definitely going to be more critical of those aspects, partially because you do have experience there, and I mean,
probably it.
And the other part being documentaries are just as subjective as anything else. You can universally have a praised documentary, but still dislike how parts of it are portrayed or done. And I mean, and ultimately, you want to see a documentary, and you kind of want to see it from the most neutral perspective as possible. In theory, I guess, but when you hear things like that, it's like, is there a neutrality there? But I don't know that matters so much here, because she's not trying to get to the bottom of like a conspiracy. She's just wanting to know who these kids are and get these kids to talk about their lives and who they are. And I think what's one of the things that comes out of this is that, I mean, you get a wonderful ball of that mid-teen to early 20s angst that definitely builds just in general. But I also love that this movie, for all of the things that the kids say, it's an interesting situation of how much truth are we getting. I think 90% of it is they seem awfully like you said, awfully genuine about things, but there are definite moments with the kids where a story comes out and you're like, well, now you sound like the 17-year-old that didn't go to school because you're taking a story that sounded legitimate and now you've added a thing to it that is so far it's possible, but I kind of doubt it,
It's funny because I recognize those moments, and to me, those were a good part of the film.
Definitely,
I'm like, yeah, obviously that needs to be there because it's also part of who they are, and it's very relatable too. But I take issue with how she got those answers. Like, it doesn't make sense. You're right. You've broken down my criticism and turned it on its. No,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to break your criticism.
No, I guess it just seems like she's egging them on a little bit too much, where 90% of the time, she asks very kind of monotonal, just straightforward questions that they answer, and she obviously is not egging them on. It's just those few times.
Sure.
Plus a couple others that I will get into when you want to talk about my least favorite thing of the whole film.
Well, let's do that, actually. Let's jump to it. Because I think we're both going to agree at the end of this. It's a good movie. It's a good documentary.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the real question.
It's representative. It's honest itself. That not just the kids or the responses are sincere. I think the documentary itself is honest.
Yeah, agreed. And I think she is sincere in all of the things that she's trying to get across. I mean, especially you look at the first film. I mean, she's got a love here, and you see it in her filmography too. That music and the life within that is what is something that drives her. Even and this is the dumbest thing in the world to think, but she makes a ton of sense for Wayne's World.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Like, you consider that those characters really are based around music. It's such a heavy part of the movie in general. Like, that makes a perfect amount of sense that she would get that movie now.
Oh yeah, and so does Del Preston now. Like. I'm telling you.
This might be why Keith cannot be killed by conventional weapons.
She probably loves With Nell and I.
Oh, I bet.
Think about it. Oh, man. Okay, and
so
my least favorite part is kind of related to that.
Yeah.
It's where, when I mentioned her voice, maybe I'm speaking about more than just when she speaks, right? Obviously, it's the whole film is her voice in a way. But there are moments where it's a bit much. Like it's a bit it feels like she's trying to elicit a little bit too much of an emotion. And it's a strange thing for a couple of reasons that I'll get into. But there's a moment where we see Flea for a bit. He gives a great little point of view.
The blurb. Yeah.
You're right. It is his only thing in the film.
It's his one blurb. That's it.
And he's not even credited as Chili Peppers, even though at this point he was playing for the Chili Peppers.
Oh, he'd been there for 20 years.
Yeah, he's credited as the bassist for Fear. I think.
Yeah.
It was fine. More appropriate for the film, probably. I guess if it had said Chili Peppers, you're right. That would have been
people
great.
would have been like, get him out of here.
Although I feel like he's got the credit. Like everybody knows that Flea is the real deal, L.A. or not,
Sure.
But anyways, it's after that there are a series of just close-ups on the punk's eyes to this music that doesn't sound like it's taken from any one of the bands. It sounds like it's scored for the film. That's just a little too on the nose almost. There are moments after that also where it kind of opens up into the larger LA area and they're getting interviews with these kids at different spots. And each interview kind of ends with a little guitar stinger. And I'm like,
They freeze on the one, like after some like really, it's pretty funny. She does a couple of freeze frames on them having like, it's definitely the gutter punk version of an epiphany. Where it's like it's something that for them is incredibly deep, and as somebody like when you get older and you have the ability to look back at something like that, you go, yep, once again, you're 17 and did not go to high school. I get it. Okay.
In your words, they are moments where it'll freeze frame and you would hear, "That's me," like
record scratch.
Yeah. And so that's a little weird. I think that little bit culminates in there's a bit with the Resistance, the lead for the Resistance, where they're going through, I forget, somebody's mom's house.
Yeah, Gizmo's
mom's house. You're right. How could I forget? And how does he end that? It's something like, and this is where punks come from. And he like throws his hand out and there's literally a rim shot. And it's her joke. It's her voice that she rim shots in the film. And I'm like, my least favorite moment in the entire film, but it is a little bit emblematic of the film speaks for itself in so many ways that it doesn't need that.
Sure.
Like it's even the humor, like there's plenty of humor, most of it dark in this film that I don't need an actual joke with a rim shot in there.
Sure.
But I guess it's a small complaint, really. In the end, it's just it didn't stick with me. It barely took me out in the moment. It wasn't like repeated.
It stuck with you enough to complain about it right now on this show publicly.
Yes, but I wasn't thinking about it towards the end of the film, even especially.
You were just sitting there going, that rim shot. I just can't. It's like, oh, great, she's donating money to charity now. Profits from this goes to what? Rim Shot Anonymous.
I don't know. Did you have any issue? Did it seem a bit much at any point like that to you?
No, I mean, there's the moment that you're talking about where they do the close up of all the eyes. When you talk about it and you're not watching it, I kid you not, I start hearing That freaking Phil Collins song. I can see
Another Day in
this.
Paradise.
That's it. Like
Yeah.
I'm like that's how you that like if you put that one on there, now you're a little on the nose. But that's totally
You're right.
like,
I need to redo that.
It is like, now I really want you to take this movie and edit that in, please. Please. Start this show with that too.
She didn't ask any of the kids about Phil Collins, and I believe it was a
one.
missed opportunity.
Who was extremely punk rock in the 70s. Pre-Genesis.
I would have liked one of them to be like, oh, his Genesis stuff was okay, but when he went solo, I was like,
I prefer Genesis with Peter Gabriel. Phil Collins was just a little too pop punk for me.
okay, now, sorry.
Oh, now you're going to get into Genesis? You want to do
No,
a documentary
actually,
on
I
Peter
didn't.
Gabriel?
We shouldn't, but I didn't know was Sledgehammer in Genesis as well.
Oh, yeah, he was the original singer
Oh, boy,
for
great.
them. And then
I get them confused enough that's just stupid.
And then
I
when he
didn't know.
left, Phil Collins took over. And Phil Collins was originally not a singer in the first place. Phil Collins is actually a drummer by trade.
Really?
Yeah, and he's fantastic. Like it's one of those moments where when you find out that he's a drummer and then you find out he's a good drummer. It's when people find out that like people only know Prince from his voice, and then you find out, oh wait, he was also
whatever.
like a god on the
Yeah.
guitar. Yeah, it's the same
yeah.
thing. Like
okay.
like he is ridiculously good on the drums. No, but when it comes to the decline of Western
I
civilization,
did
part
never
3,
think Phil Collins would come up in this discussion. I'm telling you right now.
You know, you never do until you do. No, I don't think I have a ton more to add. I think it's a great documentary for the time, and I think that people our age will totally identify with this. You'll see. I'm willing to bet that a lot of people that we either knew or have come across can identify with friends or relatives or even past parts of themselves that in this movie, you know, and all of the people she interviews, all the kids that she interviews, like I said, it's definitely a tween thing. It's like I want to say mid-teens to early 20s. I think the oldest is 22 is when they get to the numbers anyways when people mention it.
Sounds about right.
I don't know, man. It's hard to explain. It's like there was a transportation to that time, and I recognize I recognize so much of what was going on, and again, there's stories, and I guess let's quickly touch on this. Not one of the people in this movie, none of them have a good story about their home life.
I was, I guess, not amazed, but the fact that it's like 100% of them.
Yeah.
Like, and this is maybe the defining line. Obviously, when I say I was rebelling against a good life, like I was was nowhere near these kids. All come from broken homes, from abuse, from
alcoholism,
and all of the above.
I mean, everything,
oh my gosh.
sexual abuse, all of it. I mean, every one of these kids had something, and it's not only shocking and sad, but it's depressing in the sense that you can see that they all have damage. Like they're all hurt in some way, and every one of them takes it out kind of the same way. They're all drinking, they're all doing drugs, but every one of them also feels more comfortable with the people they're around than they ever would have at home. And it's like there's something so sad and but also like bittersweet about it, I guess, more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of high-minded ideals and political justification and stuff like that throughout the film, and it's great. You know, it's the stuff that you identify with too, still to this day, to some extent, right? And a lot of that does have to do with the community. They talk about having a community, right?
Yeah.
They are friends despite everything they've been through. They share similar backgrounds. It's brought them together. The music has brought them together. They all hate Nazis together.
I love
I
love that too. I love that comes up in every person that she talks to. Every freaking person she talks to, the Nazis come up, which makes perfect sense because it's been an issue forever with punk. You get your skinheads, you get your sharps. The sharps get brought up.
The idiots who latch on to nothing but the anger or the angst. And
right. They miss
the
the actual message.
Yeah, they do. Don't they?
But they even mention the sharps and talk about the sharps, which was, I'm glad that
was cool.
I'm glad that actually did get mentioned.
Skinheads against racial prejudice. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but they all, like, it's one of those funny things that kind of universally seems to unite the punk crowd is, everybody hates a Nazi.
Yeah. So that's there is that. But then the movie ends how it does. And
charity. It seriously ends like
well, not even that. Like, yeah, she mentions how all proceeds from the film went to charity for homelessness and stuff like that. In fact, her personal story, she later credits this for having a profound effect on her. And if you look at the rest of her career, like, she doesn't dip back into, any Wayne's World or Black Sheeps for the rest. She has a couple more rock things going on, nothing that I had heard of, a couple TV things. But honestly, this movie appeared to be a point for her. And she says later on that she began a relationship with a man she met while filming the movie and signed up to be a foster parent and eventually fostered 5 children. So this was a turning point for her, I think, in a lot of ways. And
what
rightfully
an
so.
Idiot!
Wait, she decided to raise other kids, not her own.
What an idiot!
Okay.
It's even dumber. I mean, more noble.
But that I love to hear, though, because the film itself ends. The two very final stingers about it are, there's a couple things that happen at the end. One of them, there is a squat fire, which I love that there's a word for it. There's a squat fire, and Steve, who unfortunately we meet at the very end anyways, it's not like we've been talking to him the whole time, it dies in that fire.
Yeah.
We see the aftermath of that. It's very sad, tragic. But then the two stingers after that are that 2 of the main characters in the film, and I guess we knew this was coming because at the beginning it says that the film is dedicated to Squid. I don't know his real name.
Yeah.
And
I don't know that they mentioned it either.
They're in IMDb, it looks like they are listed by their real name, but it doesn't give their nicknames either, so I don't know. But we see him and his girlfriend throughout the entire film. They are one of the constants from beginning to end that are interviewed in and out of the studio. But he's dead, and she killed him.
With a
is awaiting trial. Yeah. Oh, is that? No, I guess you're looking this up now. I didn't know much more.
Yeah. It was a fit of jealousy.
Great. Well, and that just everything they said about Community, everything they said about love, like, that's a pretty downer of an ending. I guess that didn't carry through either, which I guess in the film's defense, I think is also its point. Like, she's not glorifying any of this. As much as her voice might drop in and sound like she's like, hey, dude, she's not saying this is the way to be or lauding necessarily anything that's happening. So yeah, I think the film's aware of that, but I think she also is too, obviously. Another quote of hers is that punk rockers are the termites in the woodwork of society, but somehow I love them. It's a good representation of that.
Yeah, and I'm curious because I'm curious about the timing on the stabbing too. I feel like that may have happened after the movie had come out, and that's why that got tagged on, but or after, not after it come out, after it had been filmed. But I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I wonder if it was in every version of this film ever, or if that was just added maybe before the release or what.
Yeah, I am legitimately curious.
I don't know. It fits. It's just, if this movie was a balancing act between this is horrible, but the Community, this definitely sways it in the direction of this is horrible.
Only at the end.
Yeah. Anyways, I could probably just go on forever. It's a good, fascinating movie. It's worth a watch.
It is. I agree. I think I'm gonna watch the second one. Well, I think we're just gonna rewatch all 3 of them because Beth didn't watch it with me, and I know she wants to watch it. So
I was actually super curious what she thought of it. So she hasn't. Yeah, let me know when you guys do.
Yeah, she's super interested in it.
In fact, bring a story because I'm curious. I know that's part of her background as well. I just don't know how or any of that. So if she's comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm sure she's got lots of stories from her punker days.
Excellent.
I don't think we rate documentaries, do we?
Do we not?
I feel like
I'm sure
we don't.
We did when we did Hero.
But it was definitely 100% out of 100%.
39 stars.
Out of 39.
Oh, wait. Actually, no, hold on.
Okay.
There's stars on the poster, I think. Maybe I can just count them real quick.
Oh, yeah. Tell me how many there are.
It's too many.
Okay.
39.
39. There it is. That's the answer.
And with that, it's time for IMDb's awesome trivia of the week.
Oh, yeah, trivia!
Because there weren't any bad ones. This one's just awesome. Did you know the cop doll seen in the messy, hoarded house, again, Gizmo's mom's house, in the film is actually a I wouldn't be surprised if you knew this.
The cop doll?
Do you remember when he pulls out the cop doll? It's like a stuffed. He's in Gizmo's mom's house.
I don't remember the cop doll.
It's actually a Wrestling Buddies doll.
Oh, it's got to be the Big Boss Man.
It is the Big Boss Man. Yeah.
If it's a cop, I would have known that immediately then.
So yeah, no bad trivia, only amazing trivia this week.
So thank you for coming out for Book Club or Movies. There will not be a show next week. I am on vacation.
Yay! So I am too, I guess.
Yay! Time for vacation.
Or maybe I'll do something. I don't know. I've actually had.
You could do it.
Like possibly a 0 hit point. It's not a 0 hit points, but a gaming thing I've been thinking of doing that might show up in the feed. So maybe I'll do that next week. Yeah.
I like that. Do it. So don't worry about watching a movie for next week because we don't got one.
Don't watch any. Take some time.
But when you come back, just bring a head full of freedom and emptiness so that we can fill it with nonsense and brilliance.
Do we know what we're doing when we do come back?
No.
Okay, just checking. Do you have any movies for the rest of the show today?
I do, in fact.
Okay.
I also watched yet another documentary this week.
They come in threes.
They might. This one we watched. It's on Netflix called I Am Divine. It's about the actor slash cross-dresser
Adam Devine.
That's correct. Yes, Adam Devine, the very very important member of the Workaholics.
Look up who he is. You might not know, and that was funny.
And then look up who Divine is, and you'll find out why it's very funny. The documentary is super interesting. Lots of background on Divine, Divine's who he was as a child, the fact that he grew up with John Waters, who features heavily in the document. You can't have a documentary about Divine without basically the cast and crew of all of John Waters' movies that involved him, because they were all together. They were all, so it's Ricky Lake shows up, Mink Stoll, Bruce Valanche, Tab Hunter. Yeah, but like just a bunch of people. And he, you know, they talk about his life in high school and how school was not great for him. And
great? Oh, damn.
Yeah, it was not super great for the guy who was very clearly knew he was gay, but was still dating somebody for 6+ years into their 20s, and it was not a surprise when everything kind of came out. And but then it also goes into Divine really diving into and finding the divine within Glenn. Divine's real name is Glenn Milstead, and there was a point where in the kind of mid 70s or late 60s where he kind of finds it, and he just slowly gloms onto it and grabs onto it, and then becomes so much of who he is. And it's a great story. It's a wonderful story. It's also very sad because, I mean, Divine died in the 80s, and he did not get to the level of fame that I personally think was deserved. But it's a terrific documentary, really well done. John Waters, you can see like throughout the movie, John Waters and Mink Stoll, you just see how much they love Divine. Just that Divine was not just a person, but like a force of nature in their lives.
Is it done by John Waters?
No.
The documentary?
No.
Okay.
No. It is. It's done by a guy named Jeffrey Schwartz. He actually has done a few other documentaries. He did one on William Castle, actually, which was pretty interesting. So it was super worth it. Really, really terrific documentary. It was, like I said, on the Netflix.
Cool. I have no concept of Divine, so
most people's knowledge of Divine is one of two things. You remember Divine from the shocking moment in Pink Flamingos where Divine eats a dog turd, and they talk about it in the movie, and it's, I mean, this is not like the dog poops, Divine gets on the ground, scoops it up, and right in the mouth.
Not in a fake movie set type way?
No, not at all. Okay. It's like you see the dog poop. This is from the 70s, man. There was no editing here.
Okay.
Do
they talk about it in the way that he wishes he hadn't done that? Don't spoil it. Actually, never mind.
No, it's worth watching. You just kind of to hear that little section of the discussion, and John Waters even having like I'm telling you this weeks ahead of time that it's coming, and Divine. All right. And the other thing people know Divine for is going to be Hairspray, which is probably
that might be the one where I would recognize him, not the other one.
Probably more often than not, you're going to recognize Divine from Hairspray. And Divine was in the original Hairspray was Tracy Turnblatt's mother.
Okay.
Right. And her father, by the way, played by Jerry Stiller.
Oh, R.I.P. Paul Walker.
Yeah.
Jerry Stiller. Is it R.I.P. Jerry Stiller, Paul Walker, or is it R.I.P. Paul Walker, Jerry Stiller?
See, I kind of default to Paul Walker first.
Okay, that makes sense.
I feel like you have to give him the due ahead of time.
It's true. Okay. For next time.
Yeah, P-Whack.
Maybe P-Walk?
L is silent.
So am I.
So here's the other thing I watched this week, and I got to talk about it.
Okay.
I finally, and I mentioned this just recently, I'm watching a lot of Comic Book Men, been kind of getting into watching Kevin Smith stuff, and I never saw Tusk.
Oh, right.
I finally watched it.
Sorry, what?
Tusk.
And
I'd never seen
this was a thing.
Yeah. There was I remember the push behind it where he was like on Twitter and he was hashtagging everything Walrus, yes, and trying to get it financed. And
sorry.
Okay, there's a lot of geese in there.
There's a flying earwig in here.
What kind of a Twilight Zone are you living in?
It's, since quarantine, I've moved a lot of my office equipment into the house so that I don't have to be quarantined and alone. So I think the bugs have taken over largely here in the garage where I still record.
Yeah, you definitely...
sorry,
it's
please.
Behind you!
No!
Just two giant antenna come up from behind your head.
I hate earwigs.
Dude, they're the worst. I do not like them at all.
Ugh.
Yeah, so I'd been doing this Kevin Smith watch of stuff, and I had not seen Tusk, but I decided, all right, let's... I was watching Comic Book Men on Saturday night, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to turn this movie on. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to see it. Justin Long is in it. Michael Parks and what's his name? The he sees dead people kid, but as an adult.
Oh, Haley Joel Osment.
And this has a cameo also by it also has Johnny Depp in it.
What?
Yeah, no,
is this fairly recent?
It's recent in the sense that this is like 2016, I think.
Oh.
It's a so the movie Tusk was based on a podcast on one of Kevin Smith's podcasts, an episode of the Smodcast, I think, with Scott Mosier, and it was about I don't know if the story is true or if it's something that they found, and I didn't really dig into it, and I wish I had. I remember looking this up a long time ago, but there was a story that they tell or were told or found about a guy who started kidnapping people, and he tried to turn them into a walrus. Like he tried to sew them and cut their skin up and make them into a living walrus.
What?
And they...
How does that work?
I don't know, dude. I don't know. But they took the idea and decided, let's make it into a movie.
I think at that point, they're technically not walruses.
They're walry. It's a wall guy.
Oh, that's okay.
So they decided to make it into a movie, and he got this all crowdfunded, and he hashtagged everything with walrus, yes, and it was a thing. And he got Justin Long and Haley Joel Osment and
sure.
And
obviously.
And Johnny Depp, who, by the way, is not credited as Johnny Depp. He's credited as his character, whose name is Guy Lapointe, and he is a French detective. He does talk like very bad French accent, kind of like this.
Sure.
And he
talks like Keith Richards doing a French accent.
Yeah.
I just squished the earwig, and it's like crawling away now.
You got to eat it.
Come on.
Come on. So the entire concept of this movie is Justin Long and Haley Joel Osment have a podcast called the Not, N-O-T, SEE party, the not C party, because for whatever reason, Haley Joel Osment's character doesn't like to fly or go places. But so his partner Justin Long does, and then comes back and tells the story and does he basically drops the interview information, and it's supposed to be funny. So they end up finding
it's like a real A-team dynamic.
Yeah, it's real stupid. So the plot here is that they have found this kid on the internet that was doing remember the lightsaber kid?
Sure.
In the garage.
Mm-hmm.
So they decided, Kevin Smith decided, we're going to amp this up, and it's a kid doing the same thing, except he's doing it with a katana, and he cuts his own leg clean off.
Awesome.
And so they're laughing about it and all that, and the Justin Long goes, okay, well, I'm going to go interview the kid up in Canada. So he flies up to Canada, and when he gets there, he gets to the person's house, and the kid killed himself.
Okay. I thought Decline was going to be the darkest thing we did
this is all the 10 minutes of the movie. Then he finds he doesn't want to leave because he spent the money. He's out there. He's like, I got to find some weirdos to talk to. Finds a flyer, a handbill in the bathroom that says, I'm an old fisherman and I don't want to, I want a roommate that's interested in coming and helping around the house. I'm in a wheelchair and I'll tell you stories and it'll be cheap. So he's like, cool, I want to hear the story. So he tells this story about how he was at D-Day with Ernest Hemingway, and he was on a boat, and then the boat gets sunk, and he somehow was miraculously saved by a walrus. And he then decides to he kidnaps Justin Long, removes his leg. I'm pretty sure he ends up removing other parts of him, and they sew him. He gets sewn together in a giant, fleshy walrus thing with these tusks added to, into his head, and it's everything I've said to you is a real movie.
Good. I'm glad you followed up with that, because that was my main concern.
Here is what I can tell you about this movie. It is, I think, out of all of Kevin Smith's movies, maybe the one that is most reviled, most critiqued, most
really?
This is the bottom of the barrel Kevin Smith.
Really?
And here's the thing. It's definitely the worst thing he's made. It's also infinitely watchable for me because it is such a train wreck. It's not good. It is not good. This isn't I said Jay and Silent Bob Reboot was I like that. It's okay. I can watch it. It's a good. That's an okay movie. Totally watchable. It's uneven. This is just bad. This is
not uneven. This is perfectly bad.
This is the movie where I like it so much that I will watch it multiple times, and I really, really, really would kill to have Joe Bob do this movie with Kevin Smith. I want to hear all the background stories. I want to hear all of the weird set stories. I want it all. I want to know everything about this movie. I don't know how any of this happens. I don't know how he got Justin Long and suckered him into being in a walrus outfit that he definitely was in, and they make it to the.
What was Justin Long doing?
They make the point of he gets his tongue cut out, so he's in this walrus outfit just doing this, going the entire time. Every time you see him on screen, not crying, and I'm since you're never gonna watch this movie, okay, I am going to spoil this movie for you.
Okay, all right.
So he figures out a way to get a hold of his girlfriend and his friend. They figure out, okay, we got to go to Canada. So they get to Canada. They end up meeting Guy Lapointe, who they figure out he's searching for a serial killer that happens to be this guy that's making walleye people. And they figure out where he is, and as they get to him, we are brought to a point where now Michael Park's character, who's the guy, the old man that turned him into a walrus, that said he was in a wheelchair at the beginning, is in a wheelchair, is not needing a wheelchair, has now put on his own walrus outfit to fight the Justin Long walrus.
Twist.
He gets he finally gets angry at the Justin Long walrus, and then he takes off his walrus outfit and is going to kill the Justin Long. But then the Justin Long walrus knocks him down and starts impaling him like this, going,
He's shaking his head up and down, everybody, in a yes type
stabbing
motion.
him with his tusks. The movie ends where it's where the
so it does end.
The girlfriend and the podcast partner show up. They've got the gun trained on him. Cut to black. Smash cut. Doors opening. They're holding a girlfriend's got a paper bag in her hand, and Haley Joel Osment is holding her tightly, and they walk up to this balcony, and she yells down into a zoo into a zoo enclosure, where she yells for Justin Long's character, who comes like he doesn't make any noise. She throws the fish down there. He comes out, starts devouring the fish. He looks at her, and then she says, "I love you," walks away, and the final scene is him crying. Little walrus tears.
So now you just spent so long saying this is a bad movie. I don't know.
I'm telling you,
honestly.
I'm legitimately saying this to you. I know what I told you. I really think you should watch this movie for no other reason than to go, you know what? Kevin Smith put everything he could on the line. He got this crowd-funded. He got legitimate actors. He turned Justin Long into a walrus. And I have seen the movie now. That's, I think, something everybody should do. Nobody believes that's a movie. Tusk.
It sounds like it still might not be, honestly. But I guess yeah, watch it and find out.
Definitely. It's on Netflix.
Okay. Oh, good. If you don't have anything else, you're going to be surprised at our connecting actor here.
Oh my gosh, you've got a Justin Long movie.
How did you know it was Justin Long?
Well, it couldn't be Haley Joel Osment because you wouldn't have said that, and it definitely isn't Michael Parks because I don't think you know who he is.
So, I do not.
Hey, so it's Justin Long. Do we have a Bruce Willis in there?
No, it's not.
Okay, is it a comedy?
Yes.
Is it Accepted?
No.
Or is it Dodgeball?
Is he in Dodgeball?
Yeah, he's in Dodgeball.
It's been a while.
Oh man,
Galaxy Quest.
He's only in that movie for like 8 minutes.
Sure, but it's great. Also, I don't necessarily want to talk about that film. It's great.
He's not as good as I can never remember the guy's name, but it's like Enrico Koliakovo or something.
Oh yeah, the main Thermian.
The main Thermite.
But yes, the film's great. Obviously, I showed it to. So we've been watching Star Trek. So my daughter is now steeped enough in Star Trek that I'm like, oh, we can show her Galaxy Quest. So we did that. She loved it. It's great. It's a great movie. I then followed it up with, and we'll keep the documentary thing going here, Never Surrender, a Galaxy Quest documentary. Have you seen that?
It's actually on my list. I have it down. I have it in my queue.
Streaming on Amazon.
It is on Amazon.
The place. Yeah. That does a really, really, really good job of explaining why Galaxy Quest is unlike so many other movies. And yeah, the history behind it is interesting, obviously, especially if you like hearing about how films get made and stuff like that. This was a Harold Ramis film until he dropped out for reasons.
Huh. That's a different movie altogether.
It is, and they talk about that and how, as much as you want Harold Ramis to do everything always, it might have been better that he didn't here.
Definitely.
Which is, if I could tell you something makes that case, it's got to be pretty good, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it is. It's really good. It does a good job, and this is the last thing I'll say, of explaining when it came out, how it was kind of the tip of the spear for... it's hard to say looking back after the Marvel movie explosion and all that stuff already, but
sure.
Galaxy Quest came out at a time where the nerds hadn't won the war necessarily just yet.
Definitely,
you know?
Yeah.
And Galaxy Quest, they make a great case for it being kind of the point of the spear. Like, it was a time... Because the movie itself doesn't make fun of the fans.
Not at all.
Right?
It
all.
embraces the fans.
It
That's
does.
the whole thing. It's like, the fans are the heroes of the story at the end of the day.
and in a beautiful way. So it's cool to hear that both they understood that going into making the film, but also that it occupied kind of this really cool place at the beginning of this, revolution of sorts.
Yeah.
At that time. So yeah, the documentary does a really good job, and it's a really fun watch.
Awesome. I'm definitely gonna check it out now for sure. Like I already was, but now it's like I'll probably watch it sooner than later.
Yeah. And so I wouldn't really even say much more about that. So
no, that's cool, man. Galaxy Quest has been one we've been thinking about rewatching. We actually
it's a constant.
I got to tell you, one of the other constants. It kicked off the other day. I'm about halfway through it. I haven't seen it in a while. 6-8 months since I watched Hot Rod last time. You know what I love?
Yeah, 6 to 8 months. What are you doing? You haven't watched Hot Rod in 6 to 8 months.
You know what's fantastic about that movie, other than everything? It's that there is not a song in that movie that I can't place the moment where that starts. Like, I don't have to be watching the movie to hear the song to go, oh, this is when he's doing this. Like, I know every
Dancing in the Woods.
That's exactly the scene I was thinking of right now, because that's actually where I left off. Was just right there. Was he just finished dancing, falling down going down the hill?
I want to say there's a bit out there of somebody asked Kevin Bacon if he had seen that scene, and I don't know if he specifically talks about it, but he does talk about the myriad of times that scene has been spoofed. I'm glad we got to talk about Hot Rod, but I think we should end the show.
Oh. Okay, bye!
Book Club for Movies. You can find us at bookclubformovies.com. You can email us.
Goodbye.
At podcast@bookclubformovies.com. Facebook, Twitter. We won't be here next week. Come back in 2 weeks. You got 2 weeks to tell us what to watch. How about that?
Yeah, and if you don't, well, guess what? That's on you, suckers.
Yes, this is all on you. I blame everybody.
Guess what? If you don't give us something, we're gonna watch Rad, because I'm just ready for it now.
How long we've had that queued up for? Our
since day
Gleaming
one.
The Cube Rad show is probably like a year old now.
Oh wait, Rad is way older. We've been talking about that movie. I mean, at this point now, we've been talking about it for years.
Everybody's been talking about that movie.
Everybody.
I'm glad we could talk about that for this show too.
Everybody wants some.
That's besides the point. See you next time.
Bye.
Think twice, 'cause it's enough.